Welcome back to another episode of DadsR'Us the Podcast. You know who it is, Jem.
And who is Kaii the People's Champ.
And today's special guest, absolute pleasure,
Thank you.
Denise. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming down.
You are our first a guest that is not a dad, obviously.
First of all.
So thank you very much
Also
for coming.
our first female guest as well.
Exactly that. So it's a pleasure to have you down. And of course, we have another special guest, don't we? Would like to introduce him, Kaii?
Yeah, sure. And people, this is my number one son, Kasey Romeo. Look out for him on Instagram. Couldn't have a babysitter today, so he's featured on the episode with us. It's a dad show, so I thought, why not have him on there as well?
Exactly. you've heard all about Kasey anyway. We spoke a lot about him, so now it's finally that he's down in the show,
Yeah,
and
you guys get a chance to meet him.
Exactly.
Say
that.
hi, Kasey.
Hi. Yes. All right. So yes. Denise, thank you once again for coming down. So tell us about yourself. What do you do? And you know why we asked you to come down. But introduce yourself. What do you do? And then we'll go from there.
Yeah, my name's Denise. I am a social worker and I have been for just under 30 years.
Okay.
So you got a lot of experience in the game.
I work in the field of adoption and fostering.
Wow.
So it's been good, and thank you guys for inviting me. I think it's a really wholesome topic.
It is.
And the fact that you're addressing the balance by having a female here. So
because we want to get both sides of the story.
Most definitely.
And that's very important. Because we've heard from a lot of dads and a lot of dads' perspectives on things, and it's like it's only right we get first of all a mum on the show, because obviously you are so very good one at that.
Thank you.
And then first of all, it's someone that's professional in the field that knows about family matters and knows about, like you said, about adoption and fostering, and you know what I mean. It's not just. I bet it's not just mums that do fostering and adoption. Do you get dads that foster and?
I've encountered single dads who are foster carers, single dads who are adopters.
Wow. Is it easy for them to get a child?
Do you know what? There's so many myths that surround being an adoptive parent, and people think, you've got to be earning in a certain bracket, you need to live in a certain area. And actually what we need is families, individuals who are going to love on a child and understand that child's beginnings.
Exactly. Because even if you can't become a parent yourself, you know that you could give love to a child.
Most definitely.
Do you understand? Because everyone has love in them.
Yep.
Do you understand? Whether you can give birth to your own child or not, then the other route is adoption.
Yeah.
Do you understand? Or fostering another child. So
yeah, most definitely. And there's a need that's there, particularly for Black and mixed race children who somehow stay in the system a lot longer.
Yes.
And you don't have to have a biological connection to be able to love. Indeed. So it's important.
Yeah, so take us through your experiences of being a social worker. How has it been over the years? Is it incredibly hard job, or is it, as it's gone on, has it become easier, or what's the...
Do you know what? I love my job. I love my job. Good. And it's not just a job, it's what I feel I've been designed to do.
Wow.
And I don't think there's many jobs that people can say that, they get up, and actually I feel like I'm a change maker.
Yes, indeed.
And it isn't just about having your own children that allows you to understand the dynamics of bringing a family together where there isn't necessarily the biological connection, but it's the understanding, it's the love, it's the passion, it's the zeal in terms of wanting to make a difference to the lives of children, families.
Yes.
I've worked with families who have their own biological children, but they've always felt, actually I want to adopt, or I actually want to be a fostering household.
Yes.
So people will come for a variety of reasons, and you look at what's your motivating factor around wanting to do?
Yeah, exactly. Because you can't just pop into your centre per se and say, I want to be an adopted. No. There has to be obviously a criteria. There has to be a process in place. Do you understand? It's more of a situation where it's not like getting a dog, a puppy for Christmas. No. It's not that type of choice. No. Even though, I'll pull it out there, that's still a big decision as well.
Of course it is.
Getting a puppy
Let's
is a big
acknowledge that.
Let's acknowledge that. But a child is obviously more of a bigger decision.
Of course.
To understand whether it's having your own child or being an adopted parent. It's a big decision.
Most definitely.
So I bet it's one of them ones where you go through that, you check their background, and you do all of those.
Do a lot of people not get accepted, or do you guys just accept anyone?
No, there's a process that's attached, and you have to take people through. You have to be age 21 and over. Mm-hmm. You don't have to be earning masses and masses of money. You don't have to be a home owner. You need to have your own house. Okay. Not necessarily owning it. You could be renting, privately renting, and you need to have a spare bedroom for a child.
And if you do decide to foster or adopt, do you get help from the government?
You do, and it will vary. I mean, with fostering, slightly different arrangement. Local authority still holds parental responsibility for those children, and they're temporarily placed in a fostering household. So you might have a child where there are, difficulties in the family setting, and that child's moved into a fostering placement on a temporary basis, and then you've got reunification of that child going back home. Then you have situations where it's more dire, abuse or so that a child has encountered, and we then have the role and responsibility of looking for an alternative family for that child. For older children, adoption may not feel like the right legal option. An adoption order means that it's the most draconian order that there is.
That's the furthest extent.
Yeah, because you're separating a child from all bloodline links, and they then assume the surname of the adopted family. Wow. So it's not a decision that's made lightly, but we recognise that all children deserve the permanency of a home as well.
Is it a situation where you can foster a child first and then go into legal adoption?
Yes.
Or you can go straight into that adoption process, or does it vary depending on the situation?
It can vary, because you can have some people who don't want to become a foster carer. They specifically have got it in mind, it's adoption, it's permanency. We want to claim that child, so then they'll go down the adoption route.
Yes.
Then you have some foster carers who may have been caring for a child since they were a baby, and the child's now maybe 3. We've not found an adopted family, so we then go to foster carers and say, well, have you ever considered permanency? Would you consider adopting little Johnny? And often a lot of foster carers do, which is marvellous. So you've got continuity of care.
Wow. Because I can imagine that not only is that a big decision, but it's more of a case of, you're taking away maybe the chance of you having a child. Or you could possibly have a child at the same time as adopting, but it's more of a case of that's a big decision for that time. Does that make sense? It's like you said, Johnny 3 years old now. You've had him since he was 1. It's a 2-year thing now, and you see him. You want to take him into school. You want to be able to take him through that journey, rather than going for him to go through school. For him to go through house to house, being uncomfortable in another foster care and foster home.
Yeah.
Do you understand? So it is one of them ones where it's not just a decision for now. It's literally
most definitely
till they're 18.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Until they're legally become an adult.
18 and beyond, because even when you're a biological parent, doesn't matter when your children are 50. You remain a parent forever. Very, so forever old.
Well, it is.
And responsibility no doubt. Should never be taken lightly.
100%.
As well. So yeah.
My thing is it ever down to the child before they're 18 if they want to get adopted by that foster carer. If a child ever said to you, I love this family so much, and could it ever be down to them?
Yeah, because you might have a child in a fostering placement who's, I don't know, 11, 12, and they may not want to give up the security of knowing who they are in terms of their identity and their surnames and what have you. But actually, they still want to be connected to the fostering family.
Yeah.
So there are different legal orders. So you could have special guardianship order.
Yes.
So the child would continue to have their own surname, and those special guardians would have parental responsibility, but also it would be apportioned to also biological parents as well. So they have a kind of percentage of PR.
So they can literally balance it out.
Yeah.
So it doesn't cut all ties to the biological parents.
No.
Okay, that's good. That's good, because that's what I was thinking. It can never be just black and white.
No.
It can never just be that's it. You never see your biological parents, or you never know of them. There must be other steps.
There's other ways.
And
I think it's also about the uniqueness of that child's circumstance.
Yeah, because I think every situation must be different. Every scenario.
Of course.
It can never be the same for every child.
No, most definitely not.
Go through the process with. Okay, so with that being said, I think we was going to discuss about this earlier. When it comes to fathers now, is it a case of if the dad question, is it easier for a dad to go down an adoption route than a mum? If the child was in like a foster home with a dad, would it be easier for the dad to adopt?
I've worked with single adopters who have been males, and I think we've had to work with some of the local authorities around kind of opening up people's mindsets around kind of looking at the value of what that person's bringing and not just focusing on gender.
Right.
So that's what you would be looking at. So for me, if I was going and meeting, whether it be a single adopter or male or female, I'd be asking the same questions.
Yes.
Because I know in my mindset what I want to hear, how if I'm presenting particular scenarios around care matters or contact matters, or what's your thoughts about, I don't know, broken attachments, therapy.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask, why would I ask just the female and not ask the male, or vice versa?
True.
So really what you're looking for is the nurturing element of it, and how empathetic, an understanding, and that ability to be able to walk through that journey with a child, no matter what is being presented, whether you're male or female.
Because I say that because you automatically feel like you'll be judged if, as a male, that you're adopting, or it'll be harder. The process may be harder than like a single mom that wants to adopt, or single female woman that wants to adopt. It just may seem to be harder, but I feel like in this day and age, it should be as the same. It should be
as equal as
it should be. It should be, but I think we'd be a little bit naive to think that that sort of prejudice also doesn't exist.
Yes,
I think a lot more males would be afraid to adopt or to foster by themselves. That's why it's more scarce amongst males that do adopt. 'Cause I'm sure you guys know the numbers between males and females and who adopts more or who fosters more kids, right?
Yeah, and it is more unusual to have male adopters or even a single male foster carer. But I've encountered some fantastic men who have provided that nurturing. And also, again, for me, if you're a single female or a male, I want to know who makes up part of your network.
Right. It's
the wider, so it's
your
wider
friends, it's your parents,
your family. Who's around, your friends. So, from an emotional to a practical level.
Yes, exactly.
And again, those are the same questions that, I'd be asking of anyone.
True.
So for instance, if little Johnny's at school and you get the call, Johnny's not feeling well, who would you call upon?
Yes.
We all need to have a network.
Who's your second person, third? If you can't get out work and
and who would you call upon? So it's the same
need...
things, and it's those things that you kind of taught people through. And another thing that I think a lot of people make assumptions about, that local authorities are looking for perfect parents.
Imagine. No.
Perfection doesn't exist. Doesn't.
No, definitely.
And what we look for, or what I look for when I'm doing my assessments, is individuals who have faced adversity, but how have you come out the other side? Right. Those are the strategies that, for me, when I'm having a conversation or discussion, I'd like you to walk me through. So, okay, I've read your report that, you've experienced a loss. How was that for you? Who were you able to lean on? What were some of the things that you gleaned from that situation that arms and fortifies your parenting role? So it's not about perfection, it's about how people manage adversities and resilience and the bounce back factor.
That's it. That's, as a parent, as you know, is how you get up from the fallbacks.
Come on.
Do you know what I mean? It's how resilient you are. You can't always, it's hard being a parent, period, but you got to be extra strong for your child. Yeah. Whether biological or not.
Or
otherwise, you have to be strong.
Most definitely.
And you have to, even if you're having a bad day, you can't show that. Do you understand? And it's a thing where, even it's not even the fact you can't show it. It's a thing where if you show it, don't make it cause any harm to the child.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
And that's the reality, because not every day is going to be a whoopity-doo day.
Yeah, exactly.
And actually, as a parent, you learn to say sorry on those maybe not so great days where maybe you're a little bit crabby, and you recognise that, you say sorry.
Yeah, openly.
And, there's... And what you're teaching your children is around the art of negotiation, and that if you've done something, you can say sorry, and it wipes the slate.
And then just continue from there.
And you continue from there.
100, yeah, man. Because everyone feels like being a parent, you gotta be A1 all the time, and you gotta be, can't do nothing wrong. And it's not about that. You're gonna do something wrong every day.
As a parent, you make mistakes daily.
Exactly.
We're not.
There's no set rule book or thing of how to be a parent.
No golden manual.
You just go in there, you step in, and you just do what you can. And as long as you're doing the best that you can do, then who can fault you at that?
Yeah.
Definitely, when you can look at your child in the face every day and you see them smile, that wins for me.
Yeah.
That, honestly, when I see my daughter smile, I'm like, everything's good, because it's more of a case of
I got a happy child, so having a happy child makes me happy at the end.
Right. You're not gonna wake up and be like, no, it's not that. Especially when you have your child by your side, it's not that. So give us some examples, if you like, of or scenarios that you've been through that you wouldn't mind sharing.
Yeah, obviously that you can talk on.
Yeah, and I would obviously respect all confidentiality, but
all of it.
The first child that I've placed for adoption, she's 27. Wow. And I remember collecting her with her parents, and beautiful baby. 5 months.
5 months, and now she's 27.
27.
See, whoever this.
And do you still have a good relationship with her to this day?
Do you know what? I haven't seen them in a couple of years, but periodically. I see the parents also, and we have our conversations, or I've seen her. But for me, it brings joy.
Yes, that's why you say you love your job.
I love my work.
See that, and how happy they are now. Yeah. It's not nothing, like I said, it wasn't a temporary thing. It wasn't, and that's adoption. Yeah. So that is almost 30 years on, and they're still as happy as can be. So.
Most definitely.
That must bring a tear to your eyes. Yeah, definitely.
And that's why I say that for me, it's an assignment that I was created to do.
Right.
And supporting families when they are going through difficulties, because children come from an array of backgrounds and will display things, especially when a child is initially placed and they're beginning to feel more comfortable, then we have things like what we call disclosures, and they can begin to tell you more things about what had happened to them.
Yes.
So
around what age is that? Do you reckon that is?
It can happen at different ages, because for some children,
the
abuse that they've kind of encountered, they may have kind of been in a situation where they've been told, you never tell anyone about, or, you know, this could happen to you, or what have you. So again, it's once a child feels safe and secure, so it's explaining to adopters and foster carers that trust is not going to come overnight.
No, definitely not.
It's not going to come overnight.
It could take years, like you said.
It could take years, because actually what that child's working through is a lot of bereft feelings, working through secondary trauma, and you're then having to support the child, and sometimes the parents need support, because you know, the sadness they feel on hearing some of those things that have been disclosed, and so forth.
It must hurt them as much as it hurts the child.
So our role really is to kind of strengthen families, and never to judge, never to condemn, and never to use kind of shaming language, because whatever situation's been presented, for me, I see myself as that solution finder, or that person who can signpost you to maybe somebody who can best be able to help you, as well. So for some children, they struggle. You know, it may be things like ADHD, so it's hyperactivity. There are children who sometimes their parents have drunk excessive amount of alcohol during pregnancy, so in utero the brain development is affected. Also stress levels, cortisone, and the effects that it has on the developing brain. So it's massive. So some children, you will see physical symptoms of a child whose mother may have drunk a lot during the pregnancy. So there are particular features.
What type of things would you have seen if someone is drunk?
They call it fetal alcohol syndrome. So some children may have quite a flattened nose bridge. Their eyes can be widely set apart. Some of them can have kind of like quite pointy or pixie shaped ears. They can be very small in stature. You can have kind of micro kind of cephaly. So it's kind of like with the brain, the head being quite smaller in proportion to the body. So that affects concentration. It affects learning. And it, you know, it can display itself in behaviour.
Future down in the future, down the line. Wow. That's
and also, you know, the things where, again, in utero, where parents have taken, or the mother has taken drugs, and how that crosses the placenta. So you have some children or babies that are born addicted. So again, medically, in, you know, the NICU unit, they will kind of look at how do we kind of medically wean children off. Do we need to kind of do that in a very slow way? Do they actually need to have medication? Sometimes they also, babies who are withdrawing, they have a very different cry. It's a very high pitch cry. They can be very jittery and shaky in their limbs. You have tremors, and they can sometimes be quite clammy. So again, their withdrawing process has to be carefully monitored. And again, you know, longitudinal studies out there looking at the formation of the brain when it's interrupted. Is there a recovery period? For some children, there's a genetic resilience that some children may not display long-term effects. Some children, it may not be seen until later on down the line, you just would never know.
That's what I was
until later on, where you're thinking, not quite hitting particular developmental milestones. Let's monitor that. Maybe delay with speech. Let's monitor as well.
So is that one of, say like you found out that there was a mum that was being like abusing alcohol while during pregnancy, is that when, so you know, during when a mum is going through their going through their parental, not classes, I'm trying to say. So would a social worker step in if they ever found out that a mum was drinking or taking drugs during pregnancy?
Yes.
Or immediately?
Yeah, they would do. And especially if, for instance, you have some families where, it's not the first child that's maybe being removed. It could be second, third or fourth or 11th child. So, yes, if we're awares, or if somebody's gone for an antenatal check.
That's the class. That's what I'm trying to think of. That's what I'm
And it comes up with substances from a urine test. Then what they would do is let the person know that we will be notifying social services. And then that's when frontline social workers, which is the work that I don't do. So, all credit to my frontline colleagues who go in and they do all of that work around removal of those children.
That must not be an easy job.
Of course not.
Because I would hate to be in that position,
of course
detaching families.
Yeah.
And because that's what I know. That's not your field.
Yeah.
But would you know any examples of?
Because for every child that you're placing, either in a fostering home or placing a child in an adoptive placement, remember they've experienced that loss and separation.
So is it a situation where I want to put it in a dad's point of view now? So if there was a breakdown in the relationship between the mum and the dad, and for whatever reason the child just got involved on the wrong side of things, and then they've had to be removed from the house.
Yeah.
How does that affect the rights of the dad, if that makes sense?
Right. So where possible, if you've got a situation where you're looking at a child possibly coming into care, what we would first try to do is to find and see and explore if there were other family members. So that could be dad, if he's seen as a protective factor.
Right.
So dad could be approached, or dad's mum or somebody else, if they felt that, in the immediate, child needs to be removed from that environment but placed somewhere in a safer environment. So where possible.
What is the criteria? So like the mum said she did so example is the child has to be removed from the house. Yeah. The main carer's house. Yeah. So that's the mum. Yeah. The mum doesn't want the child to live with the dad, but that's the only place or real place that the child could go. How would that kind of process be?
That would then lead us as professionals to explore with dad, irrespective of what mum was saying.
Okay.
We need to kind of do an assessment to see, is it that she might be bitter because the relationship's ended or something, or are there legitimate reasons why she's saying no to dad? So that's for us to kind of determine whether dad is a feasible option or not.
Because if you obviously draw the line and say dad is not there's no way you could go live with the dad, then that's a no. But if it's a possibility that the dad is in a much better situation, like I said, he ticks all the boxes, he has his own house, he has his own room, or the child will have his own room, etc., 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 then it can be a possibility that the child can be...
And all of those factors may not be there, but if we're looking at levels of care and actually safeguarding, then ultimately you would want a child to be connected with their kin.
Yes.
So if it requires for a dad to be supported, for instance, maybe with housing,
or something, then that's something you could provide as well.
That's something you can support and write supporting letters or applications for that. But also as well, even if a child was not placed with the biological father for variety of reasons, we'd still want to maybe look at contact.
Yes.
So there is that kind of continuity of that child having contact with dad. So it might be supervised, because again, it depends on what background checks or what may have come up regarding dad. But nevertheless, we see the value of contact.
Good. So you hear it first, that at the end of the day, whether you are the mum or the dad, and at the end of the day, the child comes first. That's the main priority.
Most definitely, and has to.
The main priority is the child and the safety of the child, the well-being of the child. and despite whatever the situation the mum and dad are going through, the main priority is, because that's the scenarios that keep coming up that I hear about, is what if the child gets removed from the house, who gets not necessarily parental guardianship, but who has like necessary rights, especially if the child gets placed in foster care or you know, is not as far as going up for adoption, but you know, is on that process, but who still has more rights to see the child or have any contact with the child.
If the child's removed and the child's in care, it doesn't necessarily mean that your parental responsibility is legally removed from you.
No.
However, there may be legitimate reasons why a child's being removed. So it's really about kind of working in partnership with both sides of that child's family, and actually exploring who within that network might be in a position to care for this child whilst further assessments are taking place.
And this is all outside of court. Will this all be
Well,
settled?
that can be the beginning of the court process, and sometimes you can end up in quite complicated care proceedings relating to where a child should reside, courts giving directions around which family members or close friends could be assessed to see if they have the ability to care for that child. So it's each individual every time it's different.
Yes, you have to address it as an individual case by case basis,
and it's unique to that child. And where possible, it's about, you know, looking at, are there family members, and if there is, especially if you've got a child that's removed and you want to minimize the trauma of what that child's going through, disruption of care and everything else, and routines, and what has been familiar to that child.
So what's the quickest procedure of doing things? If a child, so like you see a child on a Monday, will they be in someone's house by Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday?
Depends. If you've got a situation where an emergency protection order is granted by a court, you know, or something is disclosed of an acute nature, then an emergency protection order means that you go in with the police and those children are removed. Okay. So it depends on the gravity of what's going on and what's being presented, that, you know, you may need to act really promptly.
Fair enough, because you don't want the safety or...
No, and if a child's disclosed something, maybe at school or nursery, or there's been findings of whatever it might be of harm and so forth, you're not going to leave a child in that situation. So you have to, and then that's presented to a judge or a magistrate to kind of sanction the granting of an emergency protection order. So it's not taken lightly. And in those instances, you know, it's quite acute circumstances.
100%. Is there any way of it not going through the court system and only through social services?
It depends. You might have the involvement of social services, and they then make a decision about whether or not they need to take things down the legal routes, called care proceedings, or whether or not a decision can be made to place a child on what we call a child in need plan, which means maybe a child could be at harm, but it is more about the support that we could provide to the family, and there's monitoring that goes on with that. Because
a lot of families, I feel like, are scared of the court fees and everything that comes with going into the court system. But I feel like they rather address any situation outside of the court system, rather than only if it is 100% necessary to go through the court and to get, you know, legal guardianship or...
And I think if you've got what we would call private proceedings, in that, you know, if you've got parents where social services aren't involved, that's where you're looking at kind of the costs.
Okay, so if it goes through the social...
So social services is more about where a child is at risk of harm. So you might have a couple who they've broken up, they've been together, I don't know, 10 years, and, you know, there's situations around contact matter. So that's then more of a kind of private situation that you would then, I guess, go and seek independent legal advice around what you would do in your particular situation. So usually, again, I think it would be around maybe families looking at mediation, to try and resolve things around co-parenting.
Yes.
But my line of work is not in that domain. My line of work is with social services.
Yeah, most definitely.
Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, that's very important to know the difference, because a lot of people may assume that when you're going through the social system or social care system, they might be able to help you with that sort of, sorting out co-parenting, when it's not. It's only about, making sure the protection of the child is paramount, and rather than addressing, like you said, co-parenting and situations like that. So I feel like a few other things is it important for parents that would like to adopt what you said. You said earlier they don't have to be perfect, they don't have to be things, but what if they wake up tomorrow and they say, you know what, I want to adopt? Who is the first people you think they have to contact? Or
so anyone who's interested in adopting a child or fostering, they can contact their local authority, the borough in which they pay their council tax to, and usually they've got a designated email line or a website that people can view, and a designated phone line so people can ring and speak to a duty worker and say, oh, hi, I'm thinking of possibly adopting. Could you give me a little bit more information about the process?
Okay, so that's that easy, really, to be honest. So I feel like people overthink things too much as well. If they think, maybe they might, heard stories of people that's done it but don't know how to get into it themselves. Sometimes maybe even a Google search away or a phone call away to get more information. Do you know what I mean?
Most definitely.
If anyone's looking to pursue that, I would recommend courtesy of Denise, because there's something like, especially if you can't become a parent yourself for whatever reason, but you have that nurture in you, that you want to take care of a child. You have the love, the endless time and patience. Patience is very key. You cannot be a parent if you're not patient.
Most definitely.
I've realized that. Trust me, I weren't a parent's patient type of person before I had my daughter. Now I've learned.
Parenting cultivates
patience.
Patience.
It does. Like, I thought I couldn't sit still in a room or be like for so long until I had my daughter. I couldn't. Like, now I've realized you have to just sit there and just and take care of them. It's not about being in the same room as well. A lot of people, I've had discussions with people, and it's not about being there. It's about being present.
Being present and
active. And really taking an interest in your child's life, rather than you seem like it's a babysitting job. Do you know what I mean? Same with fostering and adopting. It's not like you're babysitting. It's not the child is here and I don't have to do anything. It's literally a fulfilling job. It's
and it's a hard job.
It's a hard,
and
to say the least.
A job that brings so much fulfillment, and to those children where they've felt as though they've been let down by other people, family or close friends who have cared for them in the past. So it's really important for those children to have the time to build relationships, to be taught. And sometimes what our own children may take for granted, or it just falls into place because they've got the confidence to kind of interact with friends and children of their own age. A lot of those children sometimes have missed out on those developmental stages. So sometimes if you've got a child who's say 8, the chronological age is 8, but actually they could be functioning as a 4-year-old.
Okay.
So again, so and also,
and it shows
in behaviours and things that you would look at and expect maybe a child of 8 to be doing. So you've got in your mind, this is an 8-year-old, but actually take into account all of those early life experiences. That child has development has been impaired.
Have you seen a difference in your years of being as a social worker? The difference between a child that's in a family, like family settings, compared to someone that's in a, like, not necessarily foster or adoption, but in a broken home, per se, or like in a single family home. Have you seen the difference? Like you're saying, like kids may grow up, you know, without any trauma attached and stuff like that. Have you seen a difference in that? If that makes sense.
I think what you mean is that there are some children who,
like, there's some children that are just good, and there's some people that are bad, whether they're in a two-parent household or not.
Do you know what? I wouldn't say necessarily bad. I think there are some children who things have happened to them, and their way of coping has meant that maybe their presentation, how they interact with others, may not be perceived as the norm.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
So you might see particular behaviours that for most of us, you'd be thinking, well, why are you doing that? But actually, if you peel back the layers, it relates back to early trauma, loss and separation, abuse, and things that should never have been done to a child.
Ultimately.
So sometimes those children will walk out those earlier experiences in a kind of what we'd call the fight and flight mode. So they're always in flight.
Okay.
So you're always expecting something to be happening in defense of, and it takes a really kind of therapeutically minded family or person to really understand the dynamics of what trauma can do and how it can be released and be seen in a variety of different ways. And really what you're wanting to do is provide reparative parenting skills. So really a lot of nurturing, a lot of helping that child to connect with their inner self, to be able to talk, to be able to read and see the non-verbal cues. Because sometimes people will think, well, the child's not really asking any questions, so they really haven't missed their family. My thing is, no, that could be about the child internally shutting down as a means of managing the distress. So actually sometimes what you have to do is find those words and emotions. So sometimes if I'm doing direct work with children, if I haven't come with I've got a little bag that I have with my things in there, so I might take my phone out and I look at emojis, and I might say to a child, especially if I don't know them, I'm not going to get into the ins and outs of your history. It's about building and being respectful and mindful. So I might take out my phone and look at emojis, and I might say to the child, so, okay, this is our first meeting, and I'm wondering how you're feeling. And maybe if you can't verbalize it, you might want to, if you feel able to, do you want to point to one of those emojis as to how you're feeling? That tells me. So sometimes it's not about sometimes bombarding children with closed questions. It's about reading the child, reading the situation, reading case notes before you go out, so you have a sense of what's been going on, but you allow the child to a degree to lead the session as to how far in. So sometimes a child may not really talk, but they might show me on the phone,
so you know
so that looks like it's the sad emoji, so I'm wondering why you're sad. Is there something that you might want to share, or should we do even a drawing? And children, dependent upon the age of the child, you can use a variety of tools.
And they just naturally kind of open up, and as they get used to the person,
get used to the person around them, and it's about trust and believing and having that confidence in 100%. That person as well, and not overly kind of thinking, I need to get all this information down now. No. It's a process. Life is a process.
Exactly.
So a child is no different.
Perfect. All right. thank you very, very, very much. I'll call you Auntie. I will call you Auntie before we wrap up. Thank you very much,
Most
Auntie
definitely.
Denise, for coming down. I appreciate your time. And I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you've taken all the advice and, professional opinion from such an established social worker, Amazing. Thank you for watching Dads Are Us. I know who is Kaii has left us, gone to do daddy duties.
Oh yeah.
He's gone to do daddy, but that's what we're here for. You got to see Kasey, and he's off running around the studio, so having fun. But thank you for watching, and we'll catch you soon.
Woo!